Hi, and welcome back to Raise Your Vibes with Miriam Khan. This particular podcast is a very emotional one, especially for me. And this is something I had been contemplating to record or not to record. It was one of those Shakespeare-style moments of an epiphany or an internal monologue as to whether or not I should do it. And, well, here we are. The topic is recognizing those sensitive triggers within us. You know, some triggers we think we've healed from, but really we haven't. So for all of us, you know, we all have very, very different aspects in our lives, different things from different relationship, different aspects, different scenarios, different memories, different failures. That's the way we perceive it. Different pain. Things we think we've moved forward from, things we think we've healed from, but actually we haven't. And sometimes these become a very sensitive trigger within us. And when we're on our healing journey, whatever stage of life we're in, whatever stage of situation we're in, whether we've broken up from a marriage or we're still in that scenario, you know, because triggers are one of these things that they don't really leave. They leave like a scar. And they leave sort of like scar tissue, if you want to think of it in that respect. But the deep inner wound, for some of us, still is there, even though we think we've moved forward and we've healed from it. And clearly sometimes we haven't. Different trigger points will come up, you know. I know many people have gone back on the wagon of whether it's, you know, alcohol issues, whether it's codependency on drugs, whether it's you know, staying up all night, binge eating, whatever. All of us will have very, very different trigger points and trigger things that happen that sort of take us back into the past, and we can't sort of step out of it, you know, and we can't move forward from it. And it's very hard sometimes to even voice that pain and voice what's happening to us, because it's hard to explain it to anybody else, let alone explain it to ourselves. My particular journey, you know, of triggers throughout my life and throughout people that I've helped and people that I've healed has always been vastly different, you know. Some triggers will be, you know, post-traumatic stress. It might be tension. It might be friction between your relationships. It might be triggers of where you should have spoken and you didn't. So you repressed your feelings, you repressed your emotions, and you bottled everything. Some triggers can be, you know, certainly with food. We have so many different anxieties now, so many different complex eating disorders, you know, from bulimia to anorexia to all types of psychosis where individuals can't cope, you know, and the only thing they can do is control or lack of control some of the food that they're putting into their body, or lack of food that they're putting into the body. And like I said to you, all of these are stemming from different triggers, you know. Sometimes when you least expect it, a trigger will happen, and it doesn't matter where you are, which content you're in, which country you are in, which place you are in. There'll be something that triggers that particular anxiety that you think you've healed and buried, and it comes up and bites you in the arse, so to say, you know. And it's how we confront that and how we deal with that. All of us will have very different coping methods. All of us will have different ways of dealing with things. Sometimes we don't. My particular scenario happened to me a couple of days ago when I had booked, and like I said, this is a very personal, raw conversation that I'm having at the moment, because this is something that I would only share with like close friends. So the fact that I'm podcasting it shows that I'm, you know, exploring this deeper side, and I guess more of us should be open enough to do that, but it's not. So here goes. A couple of days ago, I had booked a hospital appointment to go and see a gynecologist who I had seen 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, I had seen this particular lady because I was experiencing, at that time in my marriage, I was experiencing quite a lot of severe pain on and off through my 6 years of marriage. We had tried to get pregnant, many, many times. And in the first year of our relationship, I was, rushed into hospital and told that potentially I might have cancer. And they had to do some various tests to just check out everything. And, sometimes they do this scaring tactic, don't they? Doctors, they tell you like worst case scenario, we need to do a biopsy. And they were doing a biopsy of my womb, and they were concerned because I had a fibroid, a very, very large fibroid. And thankfully, when that was removed, thankfully it was benign, but it had got quite large, within my womb. And I was told at that time that, there are two scenarios here. And one will be that you'll have your whole, womb perhaps cleared out, you might have a hysterectomy, or we do a myomectomy. And as someone who had never had children, never had been pregnant, had always yearned and yearned and yearned to be pregnant with the right person when that right person came along. That's how I perceived it. That's how I looked at it. This was a huge, huge thing for me. And I must admit, it felt like my world had come to an end. Thankfully, it was a myomectomy. Thankfully, the fibroid was removed. Like I said, a very large one. Thankfully, it was benign. There was no cancer in there, nothing, thankfully. And I was able to move forward and heal from that. It took a long time to heal from that surgery because it's like a cesarean, although there's no child, at the end of it. And I was told, you need to try and get pregnant as soon as you can because obviously fibroids can grow back and da. And over the years in my tumultuous marriage, if you've been listening to various other podcasts or read my book that I published, it got hard and it got very difficult to conceive. And it became this one particular thing that really tore strips off me. And as much as I was strong and as much as I was mentally in a good place sometimes, the reaction from my ex-husband and the negative, narcissistic, gaslighting negativity that he exhibited onto me was something that I didn't realize was making me drown, and was making me drown for a long time. Every time I would swim up against the tide and I would fight off his criticism, and I would fight off his negativity, and I would fight off his constant blaming that it was me, that I was the one in our relationship that was not getting pregnant. I was the one that was responsible. I was the one that was not whole. I was the one that was not female enough because I wasn't doing in his head what a female should be doing. I wasn't reproducing. I wasn't carrying on his lineage. I wasn't able to, have my womb fill up with his, ancestors, future ancestors, and his child. And there was nothing more that I wanted. There were times when we went from gynecologist to gynecologist to gynecologist, trying to get to the root cause of what was happening to me. And it's only years and years and years later, respectfully and sort of like looking at it from a different perspective, that I could see things very differently. At the time, I thought he was a supportive partner, coming with me to my hospital appointments. I've never had that before in my life. I was always someone that would always very quietly go to appointments or do things by myself. Now and again, yes, when I was in hospital with my hip, I had to rely on people and I would ask for some support, but this was a whole different thing to me. Now I can look back at that and see that his whole reason, his whole dynamic of going into the hospital and being there with me was to play a game, and I see that now, but at the time I didn't. So you are in this predicament, and it's extremely painful when you're trying all the different diets, you're trying to cut things out of your life, you are trying to exercise more, your doctor keeps telling you to lose weight because one of the reasons you're not getting pregnant is because apparently you're obese. So you're trying to, only your hormones are reacting in a different way. You're putting weight on, you're putting weight off, it keeps sliding. And your hormones are in a completely different outlook, My hair was starting to fall out. My belly was basically looking like it was very pregnant, and it wasn't. It clearly wasn't. I had people telling me, coming up to me and saying, when are you due? And it was so painful to say I'm not pregnant. And it was the one thing that I wanted more than anything. I had people, close friends, also on the stages of trying to get pregnant. Some of them openly doing IVF, some of them not openly doing it, but doing it in secret. And lots of people were having babies left, right, centre, which again can trigger you when you're in that particular predicament where you're desperate to have a child. Desperate. And it's not because societies expect you to have a child, it's because you want to have a child. I was in my late 30s, approaching 40s. I wanted to have a child. I'm 43 now. I still would love to be a mother. But all these particular things happened, and the negativity from him drowned me. And I think only now, when I'm having this raw podcast, I realise how painful some of the words and the phrases and the accusations and the constant belittling, constant belittling of me as a human being, as a female, as someone's wife who you clearly don't value, you clearly don't love, you just want to belittle and berate because that's what a narcissist does. Some of the comments when we'd get into a fight or get into an argument were extremely disgusting. Not from me, from him. And again, you don't realise some of the disgusting things that can come out of another human being's mouth. It's someone that you've made ties with, soul ties with, someone that you've made a connection with, someone that you've married, because you think to yourself, this is the future, this is my future, this is someone I want to be with. Comments like, to family members that I had had several abortions and hence my periods were extremely heavy. The reason that I was having very, very, very heavy periods and not conceiving was because that I had been, basically this Jezebel and had various affairs and had, basically had several abortions. Well, that isn't even true. I found this out afterwards, which became a trigger for me. I'd never even been pregnant. I would have loved to have been pregnant. But all this nastiness, all this nasty side, this toxicity, it does enter your brain. So even though you think it's not going to hurt you, it does. There's other aspects to that too. When someone is a narcissist and they gaslight you and they gaslight people around you, people they do start to believe that narrative. They start to believe that, yeah, she's the one with the issues, she's the one with the problems. And it became a big burden. You don't see it on a person. It's there in invisible form. It's there in an invisible shield almost, or like a heavy weight carrying them down and weighing them down. And for me, that's definitely been the case. As much as I've been strong and I've, constantly, the tests coming back from each gynecology appointment was, yeah, your hormones at times are out of balance, but yes, you are fertile. Yes, you can conceive. Yes, potentially you might need IVF between the two of you because clearly your partner has an issue, But that's not something that another individual wants to hear. And that can also cause a trigger in you. Because when somebody is such a narcissist and is a gaslighting expert, they will do everything to outbalance the actual correct diagnosis or the correct narrative. And instead what they will do is they'll recalibrate and they will place the blame solely upon you, because they don't want to take the responsibility. They don't want to take ownership of the fact that the issue lies with them. There was one test I'd had from my ex-husband which had proved that the issue lied with him. I'm not going to go into it right now, but it was clearly something that we both needed to look at. It wasn't just my issue, it was our issue, and it was his issue. And instead of addressing that, and instead of dealing with that, for various different complex issues, various different ideals, that individual never will take ownership, of the fact that the issue relies with them. And I can recall one particular gynecology appointment where both of us were told, for example, take extra folic acid, take extra vitamins, be careful of this and be careful of that. And you do need to consider IVF. If you are wanting to conceive, this is what you're going to have to do, because clearly there are issues. That caused a huge meltdown, as you can imagine. Trying to deal with someone who's extremely stubborn, who's extremely one-way thinking, not open-minded in this particular topic, but also, again, the ownership and the blame is on you. And in that particular scenario, if you know the statistics and you know what happens with IVF, yes, it's very, very stressful for the guy, of course it is, but a lot of it is on the female, the fact that, they would have to have regular injections, they would have to have regular treatments. Yes, the guy takes a part in that, of course they do. I'm not undermining that. But what I'm saying is there are aspects to that particular incident that people don't necessarily look at. Now, you might be thinking, what has this got to do with triggers? Well, it has got everything to do with it. This particular incident in my life, it is a trigger. It's something that I'm trying very hard to move forward from. And I thought I had dealt with it. I thought I had, yes, of course I know it pains me still. Yes, I know it's raw. And yes, I know there's still things I need to deal with. But at my most recent appointment, to hear the doctor say, everything is okay with you. Your womb is fine. You're fertile, you've got healthy ovaries, you're ready to get pregnant. And when your doctor turns around to you and says, basically, your next husband, you need to be very proactive and very quickly get pregnant. It brought tears to my eyes. And whilst I was even waiting and sitting for this appointment with various things going off, obviously there's still COVID in 2021, there's people having little ding-dongs with the receptionist because their appointment is late. There's people set out in different chairs. Normally that gynecology department is very quiet. It wasn't the previous couple of days when I went. And you see all these different people from different walks of life, some struggling to get pregnant, some in their pregnancy phase, some with children struggling with their children, struggling to be a mother, struggling to juggle everything that they've got. And we always take that on board. When my appointment was finished and I had come out of there, I was weeping. And I'm not the type of person to weep. That's one thing that you need to know about me. I'm not a weeper. But this particular scenario, this trigger for me, made me weep like a child. And I can recall, innocent conversations with friends saying to me how lucky I was to divorce without children. And I totally get where that statement comes from. I totally respect that statement. But also at the same time, it's a statement that hurt me like hell. Because it was just yet another reminder that I was childless. It was another reminder that I hadn't conceived in that marriage. And it was a reminder that I had failed. That's how I perceived it. That's how I looked at it. Of course, I didn't want the link and the tie and the entrapment with that individual, because that's how I would perceive it. You know, we all enter relationships thinking they're going to last, they're going to stay, and sadly some of them don't. And some of them, break us forever. And many people that I know, unfortunately, are divorced or separated, and yes, there are children involved, and it makes it very difficult. In some cases it's platonic and it's great, but in a lot of cases it's not. And unfortunately the child suffers. So I do get where people are coming from in regards to that comment. For me, the trigger was hearing for the first time properly that the problem is not with me. And I think that was where yesterday it was like an epiphany to me, when it really just hit me like a thunderbolt, that it wasn't me, that I wasn't at fault, that I had nothing to do, I had nothing to be blamed for. And like I said to you, there's some nasty things that can come out during a divorce. For example, my ex-husband has made some horrible allegations and horrible, phrases, saying, I'm only friends with my friends that've got children because I'm wanting their child, which is a disgusting thing to say. It's a horrible, hurtful thing to say, This person can't look at themselves. They're in their 40s. They also don't have children, and they've had prior relationships. So also they're not looking at themselves fully and truly, But triggers can happen. It can happen at any time, and it can happen at any particular aspect. Certain things that you don't even expect can trigger you. For me, like I said, when I went and sat in my car, I just wept and wept and wept and wept. And I'm sure at some stage I probably will do that again. And I don't look at the weeping as a weakness. I look at it as letting go. I look at it as letting go of this burden that I've been carrying that's not even mine. This weight I've had on my shoulders, this blame, this finger that's been pointed at me from all different angles, from different family members to different loved ones, constantly, that it's me. And I think I realised that I had to let go. And triggers are like that, aren't they? Triggers can happen where we can either let it eat away at us, we can let it trigger us further and go back into our cycle, into our patterns of behaviour, or we allow ourselves to grieve, and we allow ourselves to bury that pain once and for all, and we allow ourselves to just be. And I think one of the things that have come out of it, as much as I love myself completely, is that I need to love myself even more. So loving myself more, what do I mean? I don't mean like go out and be egotistical. I mean embrace the side of me. Embrace the side of me that is a female, that is whole. Not allowing other people's comments or discernments or negativity or gaslighting or whatever you want to call it impact on me as much as it should. And that's something I realize I have to still work on. It's a trigger. And I have to be happy within myself. I have to, maybe do positive affirmations on my womb. Positive affirmations when it's my cycle. And I appreciate this might sound like very flowery and very sort of hippie style notion, but it's about embracing our part of us. My body perhaps was not ready to have a child with that person. Maybe it was God's plan. I believe so. I do, really hand on heart believe so. That was not the person for me. It was a soul lesson. It was a life lesson. It was a wise lesson and an educational lesson that I had to learn, and other people around me had to learn from me. Because if anything, the divorce has taught me to be strong, to be wise, to be careful with my heart, and to be careful who I give it to, but also to love and cherish me more, and to not allow negativity to re-enter. I could easily get triggered and go back into different modes of the past. You know, we all have different anxieties that play upon us. We all have different aspects that trigger us. We all have different desires and needs and wants and pain as well as the joy. And it's just acknowledging and sitting back and reflecting and being raw. This podcast has definitely been raw. You can hear it in my voice. And I guess one of the reasons I recorded it is because we need to be more raw with each other. We need to be more vulnerable with each other. And if I can do that and my listeners can hear me do that, perhaps it has a knock-on effect with others. Because a lot of the time we bury things. We don't realise we've done it. It's an unconscious, subconscious aspect to us. We don't realise we've buried deep trauma, deep pain, deep burdens that we didn't realise we were carrying. And we have to let those go. If not, it goes back into a trigger, like I said. It can make us wobble, it can make us feel at pain, and we start the whole cycle again. Well, I'm not ready to do that. I am in a place of joy, in a place of love, in a place of healing, and I'm doing it by myself because I have to. I love me, myself and I, as the song says. And I can only fully do that if I fully embrace who I am and what my body is and what my body is capable of doing. Don't get me wrong, over years and years and years, I have had beautiful, beautiful adopted children. Beautiful adopted children. And I will always love them and I will always cherish them. And they have a close place in my heart. But don't get me wrong, there's still that part of me that would love a child of my own. My genes, my desires, my features, my personality. And if that's meant to be in my future, I embrace it. And if it's not, then at least I know I tried. And that's the part of triggers as well, is knowing that you have options, that you can either go forward, you can go left, you can go right, you can do a U-turn, but don't go back. Don't go back, go forward. All of us, like I said, will have lots of different types of triggers in our life, depending on the scenarios we've had, depending on the situations we've had. I've still got a long way to go, but understandably I'm reflecting, I'm looking at this, and I know that there's parts of me that will need to heal. There's parts of me that will still be raw, but that's my journey to heal from. That's my, challenge that's next. And it starts with loving me and not allowing my triggers, not allowing any pain, any hurt, any resentment that other people have burdened on me and have swallowed me up, whether I realised it or not, to take control over me. They don't have the right to do that. We are in control of ourselves. We are in control of this vessel, this body, the spirit that we have, the soul that we have. And it's not for others to dictate what we can and can't do. It's for us to decide. Reflect. If anyone's listening to this, sure, it's been a bit emotional, sure, it's been raw, maybe there's too much female stuff I've talked about, but I'm sure all of us can relate to different triggers that happen with our lives. Like I said, there are people that I've helped with various issues along the way, but it's recognizing the triggers within us, and it's recognizing what is it that's triggering me, what is it that's ticking me off, and sending me back instead of going forward. And what am I going to do to heal? What am I going to do to move myself forward in a positive way, so that my mental health is better, my positivity is better, my anxiety is better, I don't have restless nights, sleepless nights, I'm able to function in my job, I'm able to function within my friends and my family, I'm grounded. All of these have different aspects, different functions, different possibilities. But it's all a matter of us looking at how we can go forward and heal, and not allowing anybody or anything to keep hurting us, because we're in control of us. Thank you for listening to this. I appreciate it's been a raw podcast. Maybe I'll do some others similar to this as well. But wherever you are, in your journey of healing from different triggers, take it easy. Don't be so hard on yourself. Sit back, reflect, let the pain out. Heal yourself. Be your own healer. Be your own listener. Be reflective. Stand back. And don't let other people, burden you with their beliefs and their pain. Deal with your issues. Deal with you. And remember to love yourself first and foremost, because that's where the healing starts, and that's where the healing begins, and that's how you move forward. Thank you for listening in. This has been Miriam Khan at Raise Your Vibes. God bless. Take care. Bye for now.